My name is Bayla Keyes, and I've been teaching at Boston University for the past almost 40 years now. And I have only grown to love it more and more. In the earlier part of my life, I was a touring violinist, first with the Muir Quartet and later with my piano trio, Triple Helix. And when I came to be teaching more and touring less, I wondered whether I was going to enjoy it quite as much. And I realized that I love it at least as much. And I realized also that the people that I admire the most in my life were my teachers. I studied with an amazing man named Paul Kling. He was the concertmaster of the Louisville Orchestra. And then later, he kicked me out to go study with Ivan Galamian. And Ivan Galamian was central to my becoming a violinist with any technique whatsoever. And for my master's, I studied with Oskar Shumsky, which was incredible. Along the way, I also studied with luminaries such as Karen Tuttle, Felix Galimir, Misha Schneider. I've been so fortunate to have all of these influences. And one of the reasons that I wanted to make these videos is because I wanted to pass on some of the many ideas that I've been given so that other people can see if they are helpful. An unusual influence that I had was when I hurt myself in my 30s. I got tendonitis in my right arm. And I heard about a man named George Nykrug, who was a cello teacher at Boston University. He studied with the wonderful pedagogue D.C. Dunas, who was a violinist. And George learned all sorts of principles about releases. And of course, this was why he became so famous for working with people with tendonitis. And he was super helpful for me. I was still touring with my quartet, and I managed to go to Boston to have lessons with him maybe 10 times, and that changed the course of my life. He was so good at talking about the way that the muscle releases. Every time after it has acted, it releases. In addition to all of these violin teachers, I had incredible influences from my chamber music teachers. So people like the members of the Guarneri Quartet, Arnold Steinhardt, John Daly, Michael Tree, David Sawyer. I had the great pleasure of studying with them both at Curtis and then later at Marlborough Music Festival. I also learned so much from my colleagues as I was playing concerts. And it seems to me that the joy of music is that you can continue learning as long as you still have a mind. Even when you are too old to play, you are still capable of learning more things about the music. One of the most inspirational figures in my life was Raphael Hillier, who was the founding violist of the Juilliard Quartet. And later he was a teacher to my Muir Quartet when we had a fellowship at Yale. And he loved the music so deeply and so passionately. I remember he made a recording of the Bartók solo sonata for violin on viola in his 70s. And later, for his 95th birthday, he played in Beethoven Opus 95 with my colleagues. It was an incredible concert. And you might remember that the coda is in F major, and you've never seen a standing ovation like that one because it's a viola solo, and the entire audience leapt to its feet. So he was a great inspiration to me because of this deep love that he had for the music and the strong opinions that he had. So I also have strong opinions and a very strong wish to pass everything that I've learned on. One of the things I've noticed through the years as I've been teaching is that some of the same problems come up over and over again. For example, there are two main ways that people get left hand injuries. One of them is that they stick their wrists back when they vibrate, and this is very, very hard on your wrist. The other is that they turn their arm too much, and this is very hard on all of this and compresses. There are equivalent problems in the right arm, and of course there are just the general difficulties of holding the instrument in the most natural way possible and trying to keep a healthy posture. So I had great instruction from Karen Tuttle and also from George Nykrug about these things. And later, after I was no longer studying with anyone, I had the great good fortune to study Tai Chi, and the principles of how the body is used in Tai Chi were very helpful to me in my teaching violin, because after all, a body is a body, a natural movement is natural whether you are playing golf or doing Tai Chi or playing the violin. So there were many, many of these concepts that I found useful in my own teaching. And not only have I been able to help students who were injured, but I've been able to work myself out of injury several times over the course of my career. And I believe that attention to the posture of the body and the way in which we use our body and release our muscles after we use them makes such a difference in our being able to have long lives as musicians. We are athletes. Football players only play for 20 years, but we hopefully are going to play 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And so we have to keep this mechanism working, and having the physical releases will help that, and it will also help us feel the music more deeply. I totally believe that if your body is tight with tension, the music will not be able to put its tendrils into you properly. So you have to be open to receive the music, and you have to be open to give the music back to the audience. In these videos, I will be covering topics such as body, so posture, releases, what to do if you're injured, right arm, bow arm, what works in terms of what the violin needs, what works in terms of what your body and your right arm need, how to get different kinds of sounds. I will talk also about the left hand and some ideas for setting it up so that it's less likely to get injured and more easily able to do what you need it to do. I will talk about intonation. I will talk about musical building blocks and how you can learn to make phrases and figure out what the characters are by looking at the score, by singing, becoming more imaginative, how you can learn to listen to yourself better so that you are aware of what you're doing and what you're not doing that you might want to be doing. So there are all these ways in which we can improve as violinists and musicians, and it's a glorious journey. It's so much fun to play with the music. It's so much fun to play with this beautiful instrument and make these gorgeous sounds, ever more gorgeous. And my favorite quote is from the sculptor Henry Moore. Somebody asked him when he was in his 80s, what is the secret of a happy life? And he said, the secret of a happy life is to have something that you love to do, that you want to do all the time, and which it is impossible to do. And I think that's a great quote about art and music. It can always be, something can always be learned, something can always be played better. So you have a journey for the rest of your life.